Hello, everybody. This is Brendan Dessner. I am on the lovely north side of the wonderful Chicago in Patty Templeton's kitchen, which is nice. How you doing, Patty?
Hi, I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, very cool. Patty is, I'm trying to think, you may even, I don't know offhand, or I can't think of offhand, I may even have mentioned Patty before, maybe when Claire was on. Patty is a good buddy of Claire Cooney's, who you've heard on this show. Yeah. But Claire might be in the room with us in Patty's kitchen.
In
I'm
fact,
not
she
going
is.
to. I'm not going to verify that.
I will. We're in my kitchen.
Yes, we're in Patty's kitchen, and there's
Guess
veggies.
what Claire's doing?
Claire's doing
Cooking.
All right. That's right.
Try to get almost famous writers to cook for you. It's a great experience.
Yes. Yes. And we're just talking for a second. And what do I've known Patty. How long have we known one another? Or when did I first meet you?
Kate the Greats.
Kate the Greats, which would have been when, like
2006.
2006. Okay, so a little bit.
Yeah.
And we went to ReaderCon together last summer.
Indeed. Brendan was in my car for like 17 hours and paid lots of toll money.
Yes.
Yes.
And
he didn't like my music.
No. That's the I only revealed that was the case for one particular section of time when like sleep deprivation. See, those of you in my my vast audience might not be aware of this. That I'm physically very large, whereas Patty's I'm very tall. Yes, whereas Patty is not quite so tall. So that it's like I can like a trip around the block in Patty's car sort of is not a problem. And even though it was wonderful to have the ride in Patty's car. I could not sleep in Patty's car, even though I was in Patty's car for about 17 hours. So by the end of it, I was like speaking in forgotten tongues and sort of like,
ancient languages.
Yeah. So I did, So I actually, when Patty's music was playing, I actually thought that it was playing really loud from an adjoining car filled with frat guys, and that's when I was making fun of the music, thinking that it was theirs, and they were being obnoxious, not realizing that Patty was actually playing it. Yep. Anyway,
you thought I was a rap dude.
Yes. So Patty.
Yes.
So I know that you're from the Chicago area, from the suburbs, somewhere hereabouts, right?
Okay. Yes. I originally grew up in Frankfurt, which is a tiny town, kind of getting a lot bigger now. It's like South Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, and right there, and so you've been since you attended Columbia, and that's where you met Claire, I believe.
Yes. I met Claire, Suzanne, Elizabeth Cooney many times over in the fiction and writing department of Columbia College. And we were both on the student board together, which meant we dragged chairs and made fun of famous authors who were mean.
Oh, that's not Okay, so, and everybody, it's just one of those things where it's sort of like...
she gave me massages.
That's not, it's college, interesting stuff happens in college.
In green hallways.
In college, in Columbia.
Like Chernobyl,
which,
the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, this is the best of my ability to tell Columbia. I make fun of, and I talked about this with. This is so fun that I've done a few of these now, so I can call back to earlier things. But when I did this with Tina Jens, we were talking about the Columbia Creative Writing Program, and I'm usually really cynical about creative writing programs, since I know so many people who graduate from them and sort of do nothing with them, or really maybe weren't great suited for them in the first place. But Columbia seemed like it was pretty cool and did cool stuff.
They do a lot of readings, and they feed you a lot in the fiction writing department, which is equally as important. Like anytime you go to a reading, there's food, which is brilliant. And
yeah.
The best part about it, whether you like their method of teaching writing or not, is the fact that you meet so many people. And the writers, I do writers group now with like Claire Cooney or Janine Vaughn or a lot of those people came out of meeting them from Columbia. So.
Mm-hmm. How did you decide that you wanted to go there and study creative writing, and what got you into this stuff in the first? Yeah, yeah.
So when I was 19, I got out of high school, and then I worked at Barnes & Noble and Denny's for a year, which I'd already been doing forever anyway. But I was like, I do not want to go to college yet. I have no idea what I want, so I waited.
Right.
And at 19, then I was like, okay, I have to do something, or else I'm not going to go back at all.
Going to continue working at Denny's, yeah.
So I thought to myself, well, gee, I shouldn't go for a poetry major, because what are you going to do with a poetry major? And instead I was brilliant and went for a fiction major. So Yeah, and I went to Columbia just because it was close and I could get in.
Right. Okay.
I could get into that school, so I went, and it was fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe not the best way to pick a college.
So you were interested in because I don't think I've ever heard you read or discuss poetry. I mean, is that something that you do or have done, or?
I enjoy it. I do. Not necessarily good at it. No. Which is another good reason I went for fiction and have gotten better at that. But I do enjoy reading it. One of my favorite books of all time is The Wild Party by J.M. March, and it's
I discovered that book for the first time when I was homesick. I don't know how old I think I was maybe 12 or 13 years old. And I was sort of wandering around the house, and I came from like a big book house where there's books on the walls all over the place. And then I was just sort of like poking around in my parents' like walk-in closet where I really shouldn't have been right there. Mm-hmm. And then there was the other set of books sort of over in there, and I remembered like The Wild Party was there, and I was looking through that, and I was just like, oh, there's illustrations.
Yeah, the queenie was a blonde, and her age stood still, and she danced twice a day in vaudeville. It just it catches you. And then Queenie's naked, and you're like, oh, thank you, Art Spiegelman. No, but I think, of course, the gateway drug of poetry was, I read Invictus by Henley, and it was a beautiful, and some say just crappily, like, ridiculously over-the-top inspirational poem, but read that in 7th grade and got hooked into poetry, and then from there got into the beats, and like Lawrence Ferlinghetti is, I love him so much, and then from there got into The Wild Party and some other things, and then got sidetracked into fiction somewhere late high school. But
did you decide that you were going to be a writer like young? I mean, did you start? Okay, so once it's like, this is cool, I want to do this right away.
Yeah. Like I carried around a notebook starting from 7th grade when I found out about Poe and Henley, and I was just like, I will carry a notebook. I will not necessarily fill it with anything intelligent, but drawings and quotes and little crappy poems about boyfriends and
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, so just from there, it seems from there to Columbia and to and from what we're doing right now, where you are working as a librarian, and this is fun because. Like for example, last weekend, when I have dinner with my parents on Sunday, which I do, and they were like, Brandon, what did you do? And then I said, well, Saturday I was at the salon at Patty Templeton's house, and then my mom was like, well, that name is familiar. Who is that person? And I got to say, it was my punk rock librarian friend with the tattoos, and she's like, oh, okay, yes, you've seen that. So it's so you're working as a librarian right now.
I do, yeah. I work at a library in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and it's a fabulous library where I'm a reader's advisor, which means you come up to the desk and say, what should I read? And I say, ooh, I will help you find something.
Seem like you might have some ideas with like that. That seems...
I can demonstrate.
Sure. Okay, all right. Yeah, that actually sounds good. All right.
You pretend to come up to the desk.
Okay. Hi, hello, Miss... what would I call you? Hello, Miss Librarian.
Hi, can I help you with something?
I sure would like something to read.
Okay, well, what was the last book that you enjoyed reading?
I just finished White Jazz by James Ellroy.
Oh, White Jazz. What did you like most about White Jazz?
I liked, what did I like? Actually, this is probably a blog entry since that book was crazy. I liked I thought the stream of consciousness, doing something that wasn't like, just stream of, that wasn't just, like James Joyce, where it was sort of like, about, something more genre-y, but still doing that was fun.
So stream of consciousness, but genre.
Yeah,
okay.
And some of the, not exactly alternate history, but sort of like the hidden history stuff. So. Did
you want to stay within kind of like crime realm, or like a stream of consciousness realm?
Either of those would be fine.
Have you done, a little bit of both. There's first-person point of view done in The Butcher Boy. So it's not giant blocks of texts, but it is very first person and very rambly. And it's a young man who's an Irish young orphan. You can't tell if he's psychotic or if he's a nice boy, because he's both. And he gets into lots of trouble. I think I could pull that from the shelf, but we could also talk about some other books. You said you like hidden histories. What do you mean by hidden histories?
Like, one of the fun things in White Jazz is that it's bookended by like what I'm pretty sure are maybe they're quoted text clippings. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure are like made up sort of text clipping from newspapers, which is sort of like the version of the events that happened in the book that the public is aware of. You know, not really knowing that like such and such. Well, for example, okay, I'll give away the ending. So, okay, now this is totally now you've filtered it. Yeah, spoilers. At the very end of it, there is there's a character named Edmund Exley, who's played by Guy Pearce in the LA Confidential. So for more people have probably seen the movie than read the book. So that guy, except that White Jazz happens way later when he's the police chief and a very old, still a sort of very white knight, upright kind of a guy, at least by Elroy standards. But anyway, and in LA Confidential, the film, there's this other guy who he's a bad guy who at that time is his superior. And in the movie he does, but in the I actually haven't read LA Confidential, so now I have to. I only saw the movie. I love the movie. I read the Black Dahlia and hated it, and never got back to. So I never got back to him until right now. So now I'm gonna have to try it. But he let's see, not actually Dudley Smith.
Okay.
Dudley Smith, who is as far as the world knows, is just sort of like a brave police lieutenant with a big track record who's maybe shot a few people in the line of duty, and who is actually a sociopathic crime lord.
Okay.
And in the books, pretty much like at the end of it, Edmund Exley was sort of kind of locked in his own career while Edmund Exley kept rising, but the two continued to be aware of each other, and a big chunk of the operation is Edmund Exley's sort of hidden thing to finally take down this guy whose just existence tears into everything that he believes in, and that has just been tormenting him for years.
So by hidden history, you mean more like double lives?
Sort of, well, and I'm really going off on a tangent right now, and this is fun though, because I can do this, and if we had producers, then people would tell me, no, you can't talk about that for 5 minutes, but I can't.
Well, if we were at the library, I would have tried to steer you away.
I imagine, if I kind of came in like smelling like liquor, sort of, it's like, no, listen, then this other thing happened.
No, then I would have just gotten the security guard.
Dude, that's got to be a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like maybe there's some stories.
Interesting. I've
some
never
stories there.
Read Elvis.
Okay, long story short, but anyway, the story ends with Dudley Smith getting attacked by a guy who is a just complete nutcase, but that became that way as sort of like a third consequence of other stuff that Dudley Smith has done. And he gets stabbed up and I believe disfigured and is like so badly hurt that he's like paralyzed and is only lucid for short periods of time, can only really function. And in one of the newspaper clippings, they talk about Edmund Exley, who is on the public, and the public record is a huge admirer of Dudley Smith, and everything that Dudley Smith stands for, and how it actually puts a little bit of money together because Dudley Smith is broke because they've just completely messed up his, all of his crime lord operation stuff. But Edmund actually puts together like a charity fund to make sure that there's going to be money for Dudley Smith to be sort of hospitalized and taken care of. And of course, as far as the newspaper can declare, this sort of seems like, oh, what a nice thing to do for this person that he admires. When, as the readers, we know that's probably the reason that he did that. Part of it is to look good in the public, but at least my interpretation was it's sort of like let him live like that, like as a guy that's a vegetable that can only be, that can only really keep his head straight for 10 minutes a day. So it's sort of, so long story short, but stuff like that, where the public sees one thing and then what's actually going on is not something you could suspect at all.
So I would have no idea what book to recommend to that without like about 5 or 10 minutes, which sometimes Reader's Advisory Service takes a little while. Okay. But I'm sure I could come up with more.
That's not what quality takes, quality takes that much time.
I would say if you haven't read Patrick McCabe's Butcher Boy, you would probably like
So the Butcher Boy needs to,
I would say... besides that, like, you've probably already read, like, Road Dogs and, like, Lee Child stuff.
Actually, I haven't.
He's good, man. If you
Lee
like
Childs?
Yeah,
okay.
if you like crime, like, have you done Harlan Coben?
That sounds familiar. I don't know if I have.
Yeah, they're kind of all in the same league. James Elroy. People who like James Elroy usually like that.
But like these others.
And I really like, I don't know, Road Dogs is good. I think you would like that one.
Okay, because I've been doing just this giant long monologue when I'm supposedly interviewing you. This is a fabulous segue into the kind of stuff that you're into. So I'm just going to do a quick little stream of consciousness things of things that I've sort of heard you read. Okay. Lots of very sort of stylish historical things or sometimes going straight into alternate history, or sometimes just like aspects of history that aren't really considered that much, I guess.
Of what I like to read or what I like to write?
What you like to write? Your work. Yes.
Yeah, because both. Yeah.
Both. Yes.
I definitely I enjoy historical fiction, but I like putting a fantastical tilt on it. I enjoy, working on stories that are strange and a little bit off, and usually before 1940. I kind of thrive during 1800 to about 1940. It's very rare that I write contemporary pieces, and if I do, they're usually based on pure love for someone.
I'm remembering a story that you wrote that was about two women in a retirement home who were both sort of slowly losing their minds, and each mutually believed that they were Annie Oakley.
Yeah.
So that would be it's a modern story, but it's still
got a little weird to it. It was based off of. I got that idea. The story is the two Annies of Windale Road, and it actually won the first annual Naked Girls Reading Literary Honors Award for that story, which I
blogged about. This is the place that had the naked girl on the swing, like not even as like a centerpiece, or just sort of over in the corner. There's just topless girl on a swing, just kind of there, the way you'd have like a table or something in the corner. Yeah,
because why not? Yeah,
So yes, and Patty won that, which is awesome.
Yeah. It was really great, and that was the story that won, which means it's not published yet, but it was performed on stage by real live naked girls, which was awesome. But one of the few contemporary stories I did. But that one, the idea spawned out of a book I'd read, I don't know, like 10 or 15 years ago called The Three Christs of Ypsilanti, which was a psychological study done way before 1970s. I'm not sure when it was done, somewhere between the 40s and the 70s. And there were three men who all believed that they were Jesus Christ, and like these psychologists who put them all together very unethically to see how they would react to one another. And so I wanted to do that within a story, but use a female base instead. And it just happened that my two ladies didn't mind each other.
They just kind of got along. Where it's just like, I'm Spartacus.
They had a big fight once. It was called the cottage cheese incident. But after that, they were okay.
Okay. This kind of goes nice because one of the other things that you tend to have is sort of like, it's a cliche to say it's like, strong female characters, just because that can mean a million different things. But I'm just trying to think of how exactly to put it. Like female characters that
kick ass.
Yeah, kick ass. Yeah, that's probably the best way of putting it. Or just sort of that. Yeah,
beat shit up.
Certainly not like saints, even a little.
Everybody's got their flaws in my stories.
Right.
You're either a little bit stupid, or you're a little bit mean, or you're a little bit something that makes you off. But I try to write with female characters.
Yes.
Because it may sound like a cliche, but there aren't enough strong female characters out there when you get into certain genres. Or if they are, like the paranormal
somebody's
genre.
Girlfriend, or
Well, but the paranormal genre is like huge right now. But it's like, okay, so it's the same story over and over again about, a strong loner type girl who is ridiculously beautiful and probably a little bit sad.
And never wears makeup.
Yeah.
And wears boots.
Yeah, and kills demons and has thigh-high boots. And, like, you cannot run in boots with 6-inch heels. So there will never be a woman with 6-inch heels on one of my covers if I ever do get a novel published, which hopefully someday I will. But, so, realistic, hopefully at least mildly realistic women in my stories that aren't perfect. Because there's too many perfect women out there for ladies to feel bad that they're not already. I want to give something attainable.
So it's sort of like, I think that's probably what I was trying to, and tell me if you think that I'm wrong, but it's sort of like, like women where it's definitely you can admire this, definitely you can't admire this other thing, but certainly you can admire the first part, sort of in this very kind of, and also very, usually not very neurotic or apologetic about whatever it is that they are. Just sort of, not often at least. I can't think of whenever.
I would say in my stories, most people they are what they are, and they're not sorry about it. And usually they're a little bit tough or a little bit out there. I mean, in the piece I'll read later on today, there's two women who are best friends, and they're in their late 20s, and they're, one is a little smarter and one's a little bit crazy, and they're kind of act like morons sometimes, because that's what real people are sometimes, and they're funny, hopefully, but they're also not perfect. A lesson I learned well from CSE Cooney was that
Who's not in the kitchen?
Who's-
She's not chopping guacamole. She's not even here.
that's not her laugh. She
Yeah.
she had an excellent story that featured a hunchback man, which I can't remember the
How the
name.
milkmaid struck a bargain with the crooked one.
Yes.
How the milkmaid struck a bargain with the crooked one. Yes.
Upcoming in Blackgate, something or the other.
Yes.
Upcoming in Blackgate, something or the other.
Yes, magazine. So if you don't know Blackgate magazine, you should go to their blog because it's amazing.
Yes.
But she has just
And John O'Neill pretty much has as far as I can tell at least, he has the ideal lifestyle. That, like, the extent to which your lifestyle is not the exact same as John O'Neill's. Like, I mean, that's the source of any dissatisfaction you might happen to have. As far as it seems to be that way to me from a distance.
by perfect lifestyle. That means family, friends, magazine, and a job, and like a social life. But CSE Cooney in that story, she had people that were beautifully flawed, and she always does that. She has a new novelette out that's called Jack of the Hills, and her characters in that too are just, they're people who you would actually want to meet because they're interesting, but even though they're interesting, they're hateable, and I like characters that are hateable, like likable and hateable at the same time. This is life. This needs to get on the page more. So it's something that I try to do too with my fiction.
Okay, so this is like
that was a slight love fest. If you didn't notice, she is cutting the avocados, distracting and lovely.
When you have your knife when you have your back to somebody, with the knife who's cutting the avocados for you, then it's like and feeding you. Oh goodness gracious.
Oh, it's good avocado.
Do you like avocados, Brian?
I do like avocados if I can have.
Really freaking good avocado.
Wow.
That we just got fed giant chunks of avocados. No,
that's
avocados.
some good interview. That's good. Okay. One last thing that I'm curious about, and then maybe we can hear your story. Maybe is like some of the how much. I mean, do you think? 'Cause, I mean, you're obviously somebody that is sort of like professionally well read. And is familiar with sort of lots of, has done lots of different stuff and has done some stuff that I haven't heard of. Like, as far as figuring out, okay, I want to do these kinds of things, is that like a conscious decision on your part? Do you just is that just kind of what comes on out?
How do you mean these?
Like, I mean, as far as like strong female characters, historical fiction, things that are sort of off kilter in a certain way and sort of being like funny in places that stories about similar things aren't funny.
Yes and no. Partially, I would say that I always want to include female characters. I'm a woman and I want to have women in my stories. It's especially if it's fantastical, fantasy-based, spec fiction on any level, whether horror or whatever. I want to have a strong female presence because even in this day and age, I don't think there's a strong enough presence quite yet. But that was a salsa jar, if you heard that pop.
Okay.
But, and then elsewise, I think it's just, like, I don't consciously write historical fiction most of the time. It's I just happen to be interested in, like, that, whatever. Like, I want to write a mystery based on a radio play during, like, the 1930s at some point. I want to, write in a silent theater, like just things that take my interest tend to not be of this era. I'm very mad about not mad in a bad way, mad in like it's very passionately interested in the idea that the world used to feel like a very large place, and it doesn't feel large anymore. It feels like everything and everyone is connected, and no one has necessarily a sense of wonder immediately to the things around them. And I think that when you go back into history, it's just easier to catch a little bit of that wonder when people didn't have everything at their disposal. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the reasons why I like going historical. So some of the things I do, are conscious. Some of them aren't. I mean, I'm writing a story now that that's about two lesbian steampunk moonshiners, but I'm very purposefully trying to be funny, which means it's probably not going to be funny at all. It'll probably be totally depressing. Who knows? But it's very purposefully I'm trying to give it kind of the structure, or at least the back and forth that is found in Much Ado About Nothing, where you have two characters who hate each other, but no, they're actually in love.
Right.
So, but they're that snarky kind of wit back and forth with one another. So sometimes
you're stupid. You smell that.
Yeah.
It's like
I love you.
come to homecoming with me. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
Right.
so, I mean, occasionally I'll try, but most of the time I'll just start writing, and then a character will find itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Before we get going with the story that you got for us today, is there anything that you would like to plug, or that's going to be out there in the world with Patty Templeton's name on it?
Yes, well, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that's out there and hopefully trying to find homes, but the main thing that I would like to plug is something that's not even done, and that's my novel. I'm done with the first draft and the second draft of the first draft, and like tons of drafts have been into this, but I'm not necessarily done with it enough to send it to an agent. But it's called There Is No Lovely End, and it's the story of Sarah Winchester and why she might have built her mystery house. And the legend goes that either A, she was batshit crazy and had lots of money. And
I don't know the background behind this, actually.
Okay. Sarah Winchester, think the era 1839 to 1922. There's a woman named Sarah, originally Sarah Parody. She's a real historical woman, and she married into the Winchester family. So the Winchester rifle, the gun that won the West, this is the family that she married into, which means rich, totally rich. And she was a well-off woman to begin with. So she marries into this family. She marries William Wirt Winchester. They have a child. The child dies of marasmus, which is the withering disease. It literally, the child would not eat and died less than a year later. So she goes into a depression in real life. This all happened. And then several years later, her husband dies in about 1881. And so not only did her child die, her husband dies, she goes into an even deeper depression, and she ends up moving away from New Haven to go to San Jose, where for the next, like the rest of her life, pretty much literally every day of the rest of her life, she continued to build onto what used to be an 8-room farmhouse. And so it literally went at 1.7 stories tall. It's as it stands today, it's about 3 stories tall, and it has over 160 rooms.
Have you been there?
Yeah, several times, and I've done some research at the San Jose, California room, which has tons at the San Jose Public Library, and it has tons of beautiful research there. But so why would someone build a house that's literally, bigger than they would ever need, and literally supposedly
just keep on doing it.
Yeah, like constructed for over 20 years, and there's all these stairs that lead to nowhere, and because Sarah would decide that she wanted to build a door, and then 4 months later, well, she doesn't want that door there because she wants actually a window, or she wants a kitchen where there wasn't a kitchen, or like an attic space where there wasn't. So she
closet here now. Yeah, right.
Exactly. She loved architecture and wanted to be a part of it, and so she did all this stuff. But the rumors around her and what the Mystery House today says is that she was haunted by all of the ghosts that were killed, like people that were killed by the rifle, the Winchester rifle, and they thought that she was mad. They thought she was crazy, and they completely ignored that she was a brilliant businesswoman. She had patents under her name, and she was eccentric, yes, and she didn't like public view because people were bastards to her in town. Like, she built a giant hedge around her house because people were nosy bastards. So I'm trying to deconstruct the legend around her to make her not nuts and show that she might not have been trying to
she had reasonable reasons for doing all these things.
But at the same time, then it's a historical fiction novel with ghosts as main characters. So I mean, it's fun, it's interesting, it's a ghost story of all ghost stories that I will ever write, but it's also an ode to Sarah because she's been called a nutbag for far too long. So yeah, that will hopefully be done within this year. And
all right.
There Is No Lovely End is the working title.
Okay. All right. Very cool. What do you have for us today?
Today, I don't have any of that. I have, actually, one of the few contemporary stories that I've written as of late. I'm going to read you part 1.
Part 1.
Part 1 of Killbox Road Trip.
All right, hit it.
This story is dedicated to my friend Nita Prokopitical, because she knows why. Part 1. Joe and Fen sat in the half-dark at Denny's. The lights flickered. There was a hole in the roof that looked like a heart, and the linoleum was smeared with blood. There were no bodies. Are you serious? Yes. Wilkes dumped your ass by quoting Spoon River Anthology? Yes. Why do you have a black eye and rug burn? He has worse, and I'll tell you later. Fen stirred her coffee with a straw and said, "Did he know you carried a mini revolver?" "He became acquainted with it." "Ha! Technically, he didn't dump me," Jo said and fiddled with her phone. "Right. Blah, blah, one night stand, blah, 2 nights in a row, whatever. Tell me about the brawl," Fen said. Jo ignored her. She looked out the broken window, past the parking lot and the fizzling Eat Here neon. Fen tried again. "What the hell kind of name is Wilkes, anyway?" "A good one. I kinda liked him. He had blue eyes. And offensively long eyelashes. What part?" "What part, huh?" Jo said. "What part of Spoon River?" "Some of Fletcher McGee." Haven't read that since high school," Fen said. "Here." Jo slid her phone across the salt and ashes on the table. Fen read the text. The other occupant of the diner was a worn-down waitress, leaning on the charred counter. Her eyeglasses swung below her loose neck from a pearl chain. "Dude, he basically said you sapped his effing will to live in 2 days." "Read the next one." "There's a next one?" "Yes." "What does it say?" "It's a critical analysis of the poem in regard to its parallels to our 2-night stand." "What?" "Read it." Fen read the text. "Are you serious?" Fen said when she was done. "How did you find this D-bag?" "Bourbon Street Bar. Hit his nose in a seminal study of superstition and a skinny tie." "That was your first sign. Seminal, huh? You can't be dating sharp-dressed men that jack off in 4 a.m. dance halls." Fen, seminal. Strongly influencing later developments. Did he have big later developments? "You're an idiot." Zing! Ha! Can't stop this. Shut up. "I'm not all literary and shit," Fen started. Jo kicked a slouchy boot at Fen's messenger bag under the table. It contained a Penthouse Letters from June of '87 and a copy of Letters to E.T. This in addition to the weapons. "But did he mean that you should be thankful he left before, and I quote El King Douche, he sculpted you into a broken hag?" "What a dick." "He was a good dancer," Jo said while she reached into the booth behind her to steal the sugar. "You sound like you still like him," Fen said. "No, but he had potential." "He did." Wilkes smiled easy, joked often, had strong hands, and said he had a job. She'd slept with the son of a bitch for 2 days and then caught him trying to sneak out of the apartment with her shit when he thought she was in the shower. Cue the verbal fisticuffs and drawing of blood. Jo didn't win the battle, and it made her like Wilkes more. Him leaving her for dead, but not checking if she was dead, well, that was sloppy and made Jo think she'd win the next round. Fen held up her empty coffee cup. The waitress saw it and came over with the pot. "'Kay, 2 questions, Fen said after the waitress left. "Yeah?" Fen squinted an eye and leaned into the middle of the table. 1. Why'd we haul ass from Chicago to Colorado? I didn't ask you on the ride because you had music on. Loud. 16 hours of raw power. You ruined that album for me for at least a year. "My box," Jo said, poking at a thick cut on her palm. "Ha! Shut up. Your box!" "Yes. Is it a small box?" "Fen, get off the coffee." "Is it a tight box?" "Get it out of your system." "A pretty pink box?" "Fen, not that." "A what box?" "The black box," Jo said. Fen stopped. "The black box?" Fen repeated. "Yes." "What the F, Jo? Not cool, man." Jo stared at a crappy framed poster of James Dean in Maryland at a diner. The black box was important. It had been in the family since 1590. "How?" Fen asked. "Nobody but our moms even know about it." "I have no idea," Jo said. Pandora opened a box once. It contained a stream of toddler monkey piss compared to the contents of Jo's box. The evil of the world had to have a fat daddy somewhere. Why would he want it? Don't know. The box needed to be fed. Daily. Family blood. It doesn't do shit. It sits there. Sometimes it makes that Jurassic Park raptor purr. I hate that, Fen said and rolled her shoulders. Me too. Did he take anything else? No. Where was it? Where it always was, sitting on the shelf above my desk. I didn't do anything wrong here, Fen. F, Jo. I'll get it back. I'll have you beat him until he pisses pulp, and then I'll soak my feet in his blood. freak, Fen said. Fun, said Joe. Whatevs, you still like him. What was your second question? Joe deflected. A tumbleweed rambled across the parking lot and hit the side of the building under Joe's window. A clod of someone's scalp was in it. What'd you chop off, Wilkes? Fen said. You must have chopped something off from Monsignor Bag of Dicks, 'cause your family's a two-trick pony. Feeding and flesh tracking. We aren't in Colorado on a GD hunt, right? I got shit to do back in Chicago. Shit meaning Davy? Joe asked, and she threw a cold fry at Fen, who caught it in her mouth. Hell and yes, Fen said, and swallowed the fry. Davy is the shit I was doing. I was like, take it. Fen raised one leg to mount the aluminum-edged table. Joe raised her fist and dropped an ear. Gah. Dude, I was making love right then. You can't be dropping ears all up on the table while I'm making babies with it, Fen said as she poked the ear with a fork. That's what I took, Joe said. Why? Fen asked. The last thing I grabbed before I passed out. You let that MFer black you out? Shut up. Pussy! Whatever, you weren't there, Joe said. How was I supposed to know that Dude McPitch Tent and Stroll was gonna steal your box? Doesn't your family have some built-in danger warning? Joe said. Hell no! What, you think the world is magical? There's good, there's bad, and then there's a few tricks between. Shit, I just gotta keep my eyes open. Well, you didn't, Joe said. Fen snorted. And I didn't, Joe continued. And we're here now. It'll be fine. What are we going to do about her? Fen asked and pointed to the waitress. She was chewing on her eyeglasses. What about her? Joe asked. Dude, she has one arm and half her neck chest is hanging off. It almost got in my coffee. Twice. She's still serving coffee, isn't she? I guess, Fen said. But how? I restate, the world ain't magic and I don't believe in zombies. She's not a zombie. So... What? She's just got -1 arm and a hole in her neck chest, Joe said. But why isn't she dead? Maybe penicillin, maybe Jesus. What do I know, Fen? Wilkes probably messed with the box. It doesn't like to be jiggled around. The box did this? Why else would a Denny's be half destroyed and smelling of burnt hair and brimstone? Joe asked. Will she die on her own? How do I know? The box hasn't misbehaved in almost 500 years. Should we call your mom? No, definitely not, Joe said. Even on chemo, she could kick my ass. What about my mom? No. Maybe? Later. Should we ask Flo over there if she wants to die? If you want to kill her, Joe said. Joe couldn't dispatch the centipedes from her apartment, let alone a grandmotherly waitress with rhinestone horn-rimmed glasses. Hey, lady, Fen shouted at the waitress. The waitress let her glasses fall from her mouth and raised the coffee pot with her one arm. No, we're done, but lady, do you want to die? Fen asked the waitress as she was halfway to the booth. They all died, the waitress said and looked dazedly around at the blood and absence of bodies. Yes, Fen said, but do you want to die? The waitress nodded. Fen pulled out her boot knife. Actually, it was almost a machete. The woman's eyes grew big. The coffee pot dropped from her hand. The slice was clean and fast. The blood hit the grilled backsplash 3 feet away. Fen's mom had taught her how to use a blade when she was 8. This being one of the many reasons Fen referred to her mom as fucking awesome. You done? Joe called from the crane machine by the front door. Yep. The crane made a jangling noise and missed Joe's target. I wanted that orange bear, she said to Fen. Fen hit the glass with her elbow and fished out the orange bear. Thanks. The two women walked out of the half-burnt diner to their Olds 88. Hey, Joe, Fen said. Huh. What are you going to put in your box when you find it? Shut up. Zing! The car started on the second try. Wilkes' ear sat on the dash and glowed when they turned the right direction.
Thank you so much, Patty. It was lovely. So if our wonderful listeners are intrigued by this Miss Patty Templeton, would like to know more of her work, where could they seek that out? Or
well, you can find me on my blog.
Okay.
What's is it Patty Templeton /live journal?
That sounds right.
.com.
Yeah.
PattyTempleton.livejournal.com.
Okay.
So that's my blog. It keeps if anything ever does get accepted, then you'll hear from it there.
Okay,
There's
so that
nothing
is the place.
recent
I think
out.
she's also Live Journal buddies with Brendan Destner at LiveJournal.com.
Yeah, find me through
So
Brendan.
yes, so those like
Yes.
peas in a pod, Patty Templeton.LiveJournal.com and
It's true.
BrendanDestner.LiveJournal.com.
It's true.
Yes. Anything else? Should be.
Are you staying for chili?
I would love to stay for Chile. That would be
Alright.
fantastic. But probably
That
our
sounds good.
listeners at home don't need to hear that.
Well, they could come too sometime.
They could come sometime. Well, they would have to get in touch with you first.
Well, find me on my live journal.
By finding you on your live journal.
Yes.
Or by seeing you at ReaderCon, which we will both be
yes.
attending.
If you're going to be at World Fantasy in October, or ReaderCon in July, or even WisCon in May,
Man,
find
you're
me,
getting around.
because
Okay.
I'm going to freak out and go to 3 conventions in 1 year. Booyah!
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Patty. And that'll do it.
Bye.
Bad Grammar is released according to a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial 3.0 Unported license. You can get the new Bad Grammar at iTunes and in the Listen section of Brendan Destner Online the first week of every month. If you'd like to support Bad Grammar, thank you very much. We're good, but we would encourage you, if you're feeling generous, to go ahead and check out www.protect.org to learn more about a cause that we wholeheartedly support. Our theme music is lovingly provided to us by the Gotsicles. You can find out more about the Gotsicles over at www.gotsicles.com. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you here next month.